All right. All right. All right. All right. All right. All right. What is good? What is good? What is good, ladies and gentlemen? Of course, you know who I be. Good Doc, Dr. Mike TV. Back again. Once again. You already know what it is, baby. Instant classic in the making. First time to the channel, guys. Y'all make sure y'all subscribe. Make sure you're notified. Do all the good things to make yourself well versed in the Good Doc's content. All of my good stuff shall be listed in the links in the description area below. I owe y'all an apology. All right. Doc wants to start this one out with a full fledged apology. I haven't really been giving you guys a lot of travel updates, right? I haven't really been giving you guys a lot of information in reference to when the Philippines is opening up. I haven't been giving you guys any information about what to expect when coming to the Philippines. I kind of been lacking, and y'all can call me out on that. All right. I take full responsibility for lacking in these Philippine streets. All right. I admit, I admit that I've been late to the party in reference to Philippine travel updates. Okay. It's unfortunate, but there hasn't really been any updates that I'm aware of to speak of in reference to when us, the United States of American citizens, can travel to the Philippines. The last official update that we had, there were 57 countries that were considered part of the green list in different parts of the world that the Philippines were allowing to come in to the country. All right. There's been some updates on that regard, but as far as the United States, we ain't on that list. We will probably never be a green listed country. Okay. And that's okay and that's fair. Right. The Philippines has been battling their own issues with, their own COVID battles and stuff, which we will talk about in depth today. If you give me a moment, I'll bring up an article that I wanted to share with you guys, to bring up some interesting tidbits of information about travel. All right. So, like I said, full fledged apology, guys. Haven't really been giving travel updates because there hasn't been updates to give. Right? There hasn't been a definitive, okay, this particular date is when us as Americans are going to be able to travel to the Philippines. What we have heard is that the predicted time frame, and it always changes, so don't grasp amongst straws when you hear this. Don't grasp amongst straws when you hear this, but it has been said and predicted that probably about June of 2022, hopefully, traveling probably in small increments will soon resume. All right. So I'm going to hold strong and hold steady in my belief that us foreigners will be able to get back to traveling as usual, roughly about the summer, our summer here in the United States, 2022. But before we get into all of that and, travel expectations and travel predictions, I came across an article, man, that I thought was extremely interesting. And I wanted to share with you guys this article real quick. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my camera off, but you guys will still be able to hear me. But I want to share with you guys this article that I read that came out, I want to say a couple weeks back, maybe even a little bit longer, but it is the hints behind, or the reason, I'm sorry, behind today's live stream. Philippines, the worst place to live during the pandemic. So if you give me a uno momento, Doc is going to share his screen with you so that you guys can get an idea of where we are going with tonight's topic. Okay, give me 1 second. Let me share this thing with you guys. Share my screen. Hopefully, you guys can see what I'm seeing. And wham, bam. Let's get up in this joint real quick. All right, this is the article that I came across earlier today that I really wanted to talk about. And the reason why I wanted to cover this topic so bad was because this wasn't a topic or a conversation that was written by a news outlet that was not within the country, ladies and gentlemen. This particular um, article comes from the Manila Times. And as you can see, it properly titled PH Worst Place to Live Amidst the Pandemic. This one came out about a month or so ago. I can say it's about September 30th. So basically, they were saying, in its essence, that the Philippines has not quite been the best place to live during the pandemic. And I can also attest or have heard stories about my fellow brethren living in the country that could attest to this as well. But I want to go in depth with it, guys. I want to have a conversation about it because I think it is noteworthy. If you want to check out this article on your own, please feel free to do so. It is linked in the description area below. I also hope you guys get the likes up on the video. You know how I highly appreciate that one. You guys make sure you caress, molest, and distress yourself all over the like button. It wants it, it needs it, most definitely has to have it. If you guys want to support, please feel free to do so. But of course, I'm happy and blessed you choose to come through, spend some time with me today. Now and then, let's get it. So the Philippines, as you can read here, the Philippines is the worst place to live during the quote unquote COVID-19 pandemic. The latest monthly rankings conducted by Bloomberg revealed. Now, Bloomberg, you can Google them if you want to know any more information about Bloomberg, but I'm not going to go into it. But it says Bloomberg's COVID resilience rankings for this month only showed that the Philippines, the month of September, it looks like, showed that the country has a resilient score of 40.2, right? A resilient score of 40.2. The Philippines was placed 53rd or last amongst the countries that were ranked. So the Philippines, in reference to their COVID-19 responses, are ranked at the bottom. Now, before I get to reading any more of this, again, I want to make sure that you guys understand that I am fully aware of the reasons and potential reasons why this could be. All right. Maybe it could be the policies that are already in place. Maybe the policies that they tried to put in place. People were not doing the right thing. Some people were doing the right thing. Could have been a money issue, a financial issue. There are a plethora of different reasons why the Philippines would come in last place. It is not a knock on them. I believe wholeheartedly they did the best that they could, with the GCQ and the MCQ and the modified quarantine and the extreme quarantine. They did the best that they could with what they had. You understand? So I want to make sure, I'm not saying that they did everything correct. I'm just saying I felt as though they did the best that they could with what they had. So for them to come in at the bottom doesn't necessarily, in my opinion, it's not a knock on them. All right. It's not a knock on them. But let's go ahead and read further. All right. Let's see what we got here. Southeast Asia economies continue to populate the rankings bottom rungs in September, with Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, Vietnam, and the Philippines of the last five. While the region's outbreak may have peaked, their export-reliant economies are still struggling with the hit. Yeah, the economy, that was always one of my biggest questions about how the economy would be affected by this. I can tell you right now, I don't want to, this is not a brag in any regard, but I can honestly say that I am blessed to have come from the United States where they were giving us stimulus checks and shit. That stuff is going to probably bite us in the ass down the line. Let me make sure that I note that there is a potential chance that the stimulus checks that they gave us last year in the early part of 2021, that shit could bite us in the ass hard. But I can't deny the fact that not too many countries were able to do that. And of course, the Philippines being one of them. Okay. So, the fact that, the economies, like I was saying, they were struggling and everything was struggling. It's like, damn, what other knock could you have, right? So the findings for the Philippines were not discussed, but Bloomberg said that the rating provides a monthly snapshot of where the virus is being handled most successfully with the least social and economic disruption. Compiled using 12 data indicators that span virus containment, the quality of healthcare, vaccination coverage, overall mortality, and progress towards restarting travel and easing border curves, which is what a lot of us are worried about. The rankings capture which of the world's biggest 53 economies are responding the best and, of course, the worst. The same once in a generation threat. I don't know if you would consider that a once in a generation threat. You hope that this shit don't go around, but it ain't going away yet. That's the problem. We want it to go away, but it ain't going away yet. Once the gold standard for the virus containment the Asia Pacific is faltering in the era of vaccination. Not only are their strict measures less effective in the face of Delta, former top rankers in the region are also grappling with how to reopen after such a long period of isolationist border curves. That's where I want to focus on. Countries, with this whole Delta variant, they're struggling to figure out how to open up once again after being isolated from the majority of the world. I do believe the Philippines, in this regard, is trying the best that they can, and they're doing the best that they can, limiting the number of foreigners coming in, trying to rank the countries that are considered the most green, and those vaccinated people from that particular country coming into the Philippines. I mean, we got a plethora of different things that they're trying, whether they're working or not. Like I said, that's just something that we have to wait to see how it's going to play itself out. All right, but I often felt as though, as a foreigner, like when you come back to the Philippines, I don't know if it'll be the same for us. I wish that some of my brethren who were in the Philippines right now as we speak would holler at me real quick and talk about how they're treating, foreigners in the United States. I often wonder how they're treating us. Do they still like us? Probably. But are they looking at us away because, we haven't quite been in the country for quite a few years. So we might be strangers, or maybe they're mad because the US has a high, how can I say this, a high turnover rate or a high infection rate or whatever you want to call it. And maybe they're like, y'all shouldn't let Americans in because of it, which is why I think we'll never make a green list. Ever. I believe us as Americans will never, ever, ever make a green list. But when they start to reopen, we just have to wait and see how it's going to play itself out. But the fact that they've been isolated for the majority of the country, a lot of these places, I do wonder how they're going to react when a lot of us are starting to flood the country again. Because when the borders open, bet your bottom dollar, ladies and gentlemen, I bet the last centavo I have in my pocket as we speak, all hell's going to break loose. And a lot of foreigners that can travel will definitely travel. I don't believe that too many countries, how can I say this? I don't believe that there are countries that are open now that people aren't traveling. But, when the United States is able to make that trip again and stuff like that, I do believe all hell will break loose. All right. So it says Ireland topped the list following Spain, the Netherlands, Finland, Denmark, UAE, which is awesome because that's where I want to work. France, Switzerland, Canada, and Norway. They're doing good with, I guess, curving and not allowing their economies to be jacked up as a result. All right. Meanwhile, Moody's Analytics said the Philippines has a lot of opportunity. Let me focus on this real quick. The Philippines has a lot of opportunity for improvement in terms of virus management, especially when compared to other regions in Southeast Asia. This is one of the main reasons why a lot of foreigners are making the decision to seek travel elsewhere. This is one of the main reasons why you see a lot of foreigners making the decision to seek travel elsewhere. I mean, it's not working out the way that they hoped that it would. The Philippines is not quite opening up like we thought that it would. So as a result, there is a need, I would say, to scratch that traveling bug or that itch. And a lot of foreigners are choosing to go to places like Thailand and other places, like the article said, that have managed or the virus a little bit better, and improvement in terms of being able to allow foreigners such as myself and you to travel to the country. What? This is just something that we have to think about in its entirety. We don't know when we're going to be able to travel to the Philippines. All right, let's keep it a buck and a half. We'll never know until they make the definitive decision. Okay, we want to let foreigners back in. When are we ever going to know that they're going to let us back in? I'm not banking on being able to travel anytime this year. Hopefully by the middle of next year, we might be able to do something, but I'm not putting everything that I have on the simple fact that we're going to be able to travel this year. Especially if we're looking to travel to the Philippines. That's where my energy is focused, okay? It says if you compare the virus management between the Philippines and Singapore, it's quite significantly different. I believe that's fucked up. You can't compare Philippines and Singapore. Singapore is a very, very rich country, in my opinion, a very, very rich Asian country. So you can't do that comparison. That's not fair. But yes, it's going to be quite significantly different. And this is reflected with just how far you can see real gross domestic product GDP has to go in the Philippines before it returns to pre-pandemic levels. Wow. There's a lot going on here, ladies and gentlemen. There's a lot going on here. You're expecting a country like that's why I don't really like that comparison. That's why I had to read this article, but I don't like that comparison because that comparison is basically comparing the Philippines to Singapore. Feel me? Come on now. The Philippines and Singapore? Fuck out of here, man. You know darn well that is not a fair comparison. I do believe Singapore was going to have a better financial grasp and how to handle it and take care of things than the Philippines was. It's just my thought. And it will be hard to argue with that. But yes, before the Philippines can return back to the travel and the levels of GDP that they're talking about, it's going to take a while. A very, very long time. And the reason it's going to take a very, very long time, guys, is why? They still have their own things that they got to work out. They still got to figure out, how they can curb it. They've been curbing it, but how they can curb it to the point where numbers are down way below what's considered dangerous or high levels in reference to cases and hospital beds and all that shit. They have to do a lot to curb that shit. But you can't put such a high expectation on a country that doesn't really have a lot in that regard. And I'm not saying the Philippines is a poor country, but come on, yo. Fuck, I look like if I'm gonna just tell you half truths, man. They are fighting an uphill battle. Okay? They're fighting an uphill battle. You gotta understand that. The Philippines is fighting an uphill battle. So the comparison between them and Singapore is just not fair, right? And if you're just coming in, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about a particular article that I came across that explained why the Philippines was the worst place during the pandemic, while it was the worst place to live in during the pandemic. But I want to get into my own thoughts after I go through the article. This is an article that was found in the Manila Times. You can look in the description area below. You'll find the article link there if you guys want to check it yourself and read it. I chose one that was written by Manila Times. I do believe that, this is a very unbiased piece so far. Ideally, because it's not necessarily talking about, oh, well, yeah, we may not have done this right, but we did this right. It's more or less just explaining the truth of what's going on right now. Okay? And it's unfortunate because everybody's going through it. Everybody's handling it differently. So we just have to wait and see what the end result will possibly be. Okay? So as we keep reading, she cautioned the Philippines to tread lightly when reopening its economy because it is among countries with very low immunization rates. She cautioned the Philippines to tread lightly when reopening, which is probably why you're not seeing a lot of travel coming into the country right now. You feel me? That's probably why we're not seeing a lot of travel coming to the country right now. Like I said, she cautioned the Philippines to tread lightly when reopening its economy because it's among a country with very low immunization rates. Maybe because they weren't offering these particular vaccines to everybody for a long time. Oh, my girl recently got vaccinated, so that's awesome. So, the vaccination rate, plus you have to think about the people who don't want to be vaccinated. That also plays a major part as well. People who want to be vaccinated but can't, and also people who have no desire whatsoever to be vaccinated. That also plays a major part into it as well. My man Charles, bro, I went over to the courtyard, man. I tried to call you. I went over to the courtyard, and that lady said, you want to get there, bro. I said, shit. Because I was trying to hit you up, man, but you was talking about you had a Skype number. But it's all good, bro. We missed each other. Fuck it. It ain't the end of the world. But yeah, I went over there. The lady at the counter, she was like, yeah, he was here. I said, ain't this about a bitch? So a move back to aggressive movement restrictions is likely if they do see infection rates spike again, basically saying infection rate spikes again. So if the rates go back up, we're on quarantine again, general modified quarantine, or mandatory extreme quality quarantine, or whatever. That's what they're telling. That's likely going to happen. All right. What else do we have here? I think that's it. So I wanted to share that with you guys. Let me stop sharing this one because we have talked about what we needed to talk about in regards to that particular story. But again, ladies and gentlemen, I believe that everybody's suffering. Okay. Especially my people abroad. Like my people who are like my brothers who are actually living in the Philippines. I believe they're going through it too. She said she thought you. Oh, you want to know why, bro? Hey, you know you boy got his concealed carry piece, right? I had it on me, bro. I'm sorry. I should have thought about that, but I never take it off, man. My bad, bro. Probably should have took it off. But yeah, my bad. um, it is what it is, bro. But like I was saying, man, yeah, I forgot I had my piece on me. I should have left it in the car. My bad, bro. Anyways, ooh, back to the topic at hand. Um, got me fucked up. Anyways, like my people that are actually in the Philippines, it's not enjoyable to be there right now. I heard that from a lot of people. There's nothing really to do. There's no fun to be had. So it's kind of like there's no reason for people to even travel to the Philippines right now, anyways. And of course, with the high infection rates, the spikes, the rolling quarantine, sometimes we're general, sometimes we're modified. It's just a whole bunch of things that are going on right now that is making the Philippines a less desirable place to travel. I have nothing but love for the country, man, and I will still continue to travel there when I can travel. But let's keep it a buck and a half, man. There's a lot going on that will deter foreigners such as myself and others from trying to travel to the Philippines right now. Until it finally gets itself together, and that could take time, you definitely have to reconsider everything that you thought about in reference to where you're going to travel this time around. If the Philippines ain't open, guess what? You ain't going there. Feel me? If it ain't open, you're not traveling there. Nothing to cry about, nothing to bitch about, nothing to complain about. It's just what it is. Charles, she was kind of cute though. The reception lady, the black. I don't know if you talk about the black girl with the glasses. She was kind of cute though. I ain't gonna cat, man. She was a cutie working at the counter, boy. But it was a Sunday, so yeah, she wasn't busy. She must have been dressed down, but she was a cutie for sure. Anyways, yeah, it's a struggle, man. It's definitely a struggle, and we have to look at it from that regard, guys. We have to look at it from the fact that yo, this may not be the place that you even want to come. Period. Right. I want y'all to travel here. I want you to be able to experience the Philippines. I want you to be able to do all that shit. But the problem is maybe, just maybe, just maybe, this ain't the place for you right now. And it's okay. It's definitely okay. Because eventually it will become the place that you want to go to. All right. So it's not as if you should just deter it completely and just forget about it completely. It's probably right now it's not the best. They're still dealing with, like I said, the cases. They're still dealing with hospitalizations. They're still dealing with immunizations. People who want it, people who don't want it, having to stay at home, having not to stay at home. I mean, it's a lot. Okay. But I definitely want to hear your thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. That's why we opened up the lines today, man. I definitely want to hear where you guys are coming from. Let me see. I think I'm a little bit yeah, I'm lagging a little bit, but it's all good. Yeah, I'm seeing it now. I feel like my connection is a little bit on the flaky side. Uh, hmm. I am hoping that when we come back open, I'm hoping that when we come back open, it'll be a little bit better, but probably not. Eh, fuck it. I just wanted to have this one, bro, but it looks like we might have to call it an evening, and that's perfectly fine. Looks like the internet is not trying to be my best friend today. It's not trying to be my bestie. So, hmm, that's dope. I feel that. All right, guys. Looks like my internet wants to be choppy as fuck. Not a good time to come through. I gotta call it a Doc is out.